like to acknowledge the people of the Kulin Nation, the original custodians of this land. Pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and to any First Nation people here tonight. Welcome. Welcome everyone. It's wonderful to think that this site has always been a site for storytelling around this area, and we do honour the fact that we continue that tradition with our plays and our poetry and all the various forms of storytelling that we're able to do. Before we go any further, I'm going to introduce our MC and host for tonight, Amanda.
Thank you, Maureen. Welcome to the first La Mama Poetica for 2022. So yeah, we have some smashing poets for you tonight. I'm sure you are aware who's performing tonight, and I thought actually I should ask Maureen what the play is that's showing here.
The play at the moment is called Fire in the Head, and it's about Kate Kelly, Kelly's sister.
Oh, right. Okay.
So come and see this film.
Great. Okay, so that's why there's a bunch of leaves behind it. So, yeah, La Mama Poetica is evolving in multiple ways at the moment. We, for the first time, since December, have a live stream, a ticketed live stream. So we have 4 cameras here. I don't know which one I'm supposed to be looking at, but they'll be capturing the evening. And this is our way of making La Mama more accessible, and so that people we normally don't reach can experience this event and be part of this night. And that includes several audience members who bought theatre tickets and have COVID and had to stay home, but they can still watch and be part of it. It includes interstate poets who normally would have to fly down to be with us, so it's great. Another way that we're reaching more people is with our Auslan interpreter. Please welcome Mark. And yeah, every Poetica this year will have an Auslan interpreter, which we're really happy about. And So, as mentioned, we have 4 amazing poets for you this evening who will be performing, reading for you in the following order. We will have Lucy Van, Tim Evans, we'll have an interval, and then Paul Mitchell and Jennifer Harrison. You would have been given a ticket at the door, and that's for the door prize, so please hang on to that. And I'll be drawing the door prize after the break. And the prize is Angela Costi's recent collection, an embroidery of old maps and new. Beautiful book, and whoever wins it is, it's going to be a real treat for you if you haven't already got it. So a lot of people do already have it. So we are going to begin with a poet I'm delighted is with us tonight, Lucy Van. And it's the first time we've met, though I've encountered her work on the page. Lucy writes poetry and criticism. She's currently a research associate with the University of Melbourne, where she's completing a monograph on post-colonial poetry entitled The Beginning of the Poem. And her first poetry collection is The Open through Curated Publishing 2021. She was long-listed in this year's Stella Prize, and this year's Stella Prize was the first time poetry was included, which is wonderful. And I would like you to very warmly welcome Lucy Van.
I have a really low sort of post-COVID voice, just not because of COVID, but because of speaking quietly for 2 years or so in my house. So hopefully you can hear me up the back, just yell out if it's too low. I'd like to read from my book, if that's okay. This is beginning at the end, the last section. The first poem is George's Door. For the cover of his debut collection of poetry, Angel Frankenstein, George Moratitas selected a photograph of his parents' security screen door. In the photograph, a red flower, carnation or rose, is tucked into the aluminium frame after a Greek custom of visiting that lives on in suburban Australia. The image speaks of an alien to me notion of visiting someone at home without calling ahead. For the idea is that the flower is left by the visitor on finding the people they intended to visit are not home. I wonder why this is a difficult subject to write about, George's door, because I'm close to George, or because George's dad died on Monday, or because I find nearly all subjects difficult to write about. I fight the urge, for instance, to include my observation that the visitor must travel with the pessimistic expectation they will find the house unattended. Otherwise, why would they have on hand the fresh flower? I silence speculation about whether the flower is fresh or fake, whether it is one of a bunch, and so on, because they seem off topic. Because I know these speculations are somehow related to the unresolved status of my decision this week to send flowers to George's house, or something else, or nothing. Really, I'm interested in this door. This type of security door lets the light in but shields the people indoors from the view of those outdoors. Standing outside this screen door, a visitor would not be able to tell whether the other door, usually made of wood or other solid stuff, was open or closed without pressing their face against the metallic mesh, which from memory smells of dust and rain. Solid door open, face pressed against the mesh of a closed security door, the visitor might catch an outline or shadow of someone inside. It is a deformed introductory gesture, this door of George's, or is it this door of mine? I know I am using this door for another purpose, which is to talk about desire. I want to say this is an Ovidian image. The rose or carnation tucked into the aluminium, or the visitor pressing their face against the screen, blinking to see shadow fall within. At the funeral, George reads some poetry by Yanis Ritsos, his father's favourite poet, maybe George's favourite poet. An enlightening moment is when one of George's Thomastown friends, Costas, says to me in passing, "If you don't know George's dad, you can't understand George." The mourners place a red carnation in the coffin. I take a red carnation with me from the chapel. I realise with surprise that I already have a vase full of red carnations at home, which have been opening over 3 weeks. One of the poems in English translation has a line about where a shadow will always fall. How hard the hard work of our fathers presses. I didn't go back to the house, I don't know why. I came here to write this instead. It only occurs to me now that if I had gone, I would have had a good look at that door. My fascination with this door is irrational because there is nothing exceptional about a door like this. Many suburban houses built in Australia have this door. The house I grew up in, for instance. Strangely, I realise much later, so does the house I live in now. There is nothing strange about this. This is a standard Australian door. Thank you. This is a poem that I wrote after I spoke with a lawyer, and he told me about how much he liked bush poets. So this is quite a bush poem. Every land is a way of speaking. Every way of speaking is a land, even in this oppression. I, a stake in some mad fence, impound this land? No. I thought, create nothing, defeat the purpose, leave the trees there, leave the leaves there, leave, don't recall any names. Turn around or turn loose where I or you are some third person, some terrible smart can't go into the countryside even though walking is clearing. I, a mast, stupidly seafaring, all I in the mountains, oceans, all door in the commons, open doors are commas, slammed doors are exclamation marks, broken off the frame a slash, a sliding door, one kind of dash. Asterisk, a little chip on my shoulder. Footnotes the witty shoes I tripped in all the way to meet you. I thought I could be a house that I never leave or fix, that I could annex. I'm very much over-introducing things, and of course, very pleased to meet you. In this extended preface, you have a beautiful face, especially behind this door, where I stand in infinite regress with the doorkeeper. I bloody love a good door. Where did you get it? How does it sound when it opens and shuts? Left open, I thought, like a tree, like a nation of trees. I don't know its name. I came here again before I leave you my address, in water and disillusion, in the shadow of a bulldozer, or man from the country, in his property by logical procedure. This poem is called Leaves, and I realise that that's also what my hat is called, and I did that on purpose. It is time for brunch. I find myself in the landscape of a devouring multitude. What is brunch? No, she said, there was no such thing. Couples wander in never-ending phones, workers count inside business, vegetables colour. Maybe I can live on carrots. I can count on carrots as my side business. Lucy Van, Lucy of, a very silly little name. If you look at only one side of it, there is another side. There is the other side, a little cloud. I'm using the word sanctimonious on a nearly daily basis. My son noticing my mother's schizophrenia, well, my alarm incalculable. How sanity comes and goes, treats a person like a hotel. Hotels are not romantic or artistic, but I think maybe they are transcendent. The corruption of one thing is the creation of another. I think it is said, my simple dream to write one decent thing about one decent person, i.e., I want to be good. Dashed. Now I dash into kitsch, or is it the kitchen? Is this more kitsch? I think of my mother every day. Mum, I think of you every day. My thoughts are containers. I leave half-eaten fruit in rooms. My child is the boss and the fault of mine. I revive my Italian. I am essentially a shithead. My favourite part of the day was deciding that potatoes are not really vegetables. This is what we are like. What we like. We like being shitheads. Digestive tract, Mobius stripping. Shitheads. Well, are we doing this? I hate the word veggies, but I don't mind the word veg. But I definitely hate the word space. Maybe even more than I hate the word veggies. I love the word containers, and I love the word attack, and I love the word smoko. Somewhere scales are practiced by husband and wife harpists. Emotions are guided reactions, she is told by him. All forms of authority are rejected by her. To embody or project it is refused by her. The passive voice is loved by them. Something sexy in their cat killing birds. They're only Indian minor birds, they're not natives. That's what the harpists say. The harpists find the soft bird bodies half-eaten in different parts of the courtyard, near the potato plant, near the hose, preludes to throat clearing. She thinks incipit, always be opening, the concept of a dead language. She is an old woman, and he is a lover of old women. Such a woman's drawer, crusted pyjamas, and pregnancy tests and empty boxes of Valium. For me, you'll go, for I am Beatrice. Recondite, working class shithead, here I go, or come. But if you think I slept my way here, you don't even know that I'm not even good in bed. This is a lie. I won't tell you about the literary mole that interviewed me, a classically trained harpist, and you just used the word trope. And what is a trope? I meant to say pianist, but I changed it, you see. Oh, I am a bit of veg, a little working class girl, slipping on that crossing ferry. I must tell someone I ate a whole loaf of garlic bread for breakfast. Cameron, my Cameron, I ate a whole loaf of garlic bread for breakfast. Oh, it was great. I never think of Walt Whitman, this is a lie, but I wonder what Whitman would have said about brunch. And I wonder, is it worth wondering this? Say what you want about Whitman, but he had those leadership skills and appetites and liked people and liked what they liked. Or maybe he knew how to talk to them, and maybe he knew what they wanted to hear, and maybe it's all that takes, that profane communication, biblical, never-ending. Let him lead where? Out of position, the harpists drive to Arcadia. They stand in a field. The wife returns to the car to look for cut flowers she knows aren't there. Improbably, there is a plastic blue rosary she takes and leaves on the stone in the shape of a refined tree. A couple of centuries ago, someone came and cut down the trees and planted grass. If you were wondering, grass is powerful social control. A child said, "What is grass?" fetching it to me with full hands, and now it seems to me the uncut hair of graves. The harpists read "What is grass" on a poetry website. They scroll through the user comments. "I love it. You should keep writing," someone encourages Walt. And the harpists wonder, what is apostrophe? I think of Marion Moore all the time. When Elizabeth Bishop took her walking through Brooklyn, Bishop said, "Marion, we are standing on the corner where Walt Whitman lived." And Moore said, "Elizabeth, never speak to me of that man. Never speak to me of that man." But that wording might be wrong because I am always losing my bishop. This is not a chess reference. None of this has anything to do with chess. That is a reference to inaccurate bishop referencing. All of this has a lot to do with inaccurately and constantly losing my bishop. I'd like to read the coda to that poem, if possible, but because of the way the book was made, the coda is actually in the first section of the book, so it's the sixth poem of the book. Most of your life you're coming home. You turn the last corner, look for the blue fence, blue roof. All the while you are leaving. You try to remember the word exposition. Most of you left in headwind, suddenly an adverb best applied to tides. The ocean on a roll today, rolling for conversations, lapping at revelations, establishing shots on the rocks, staring back like, listening to words like waving, containing, docking, stripping, attacking, rolling, smoko. In the second men's semi-finals, there are two beautiful males, les beaux boys, warming up the court. After several minutes, watching the player profiles, my mother says gravely, "They're both very good looking." We were determined to know these beings. This is a totally female principle of gratification, knowing beings. This was our daily work, this agricultural labour, curious all summer to make this surface produce this pulse. Thoreau said he was determined to know beans. The bean field, being a pun for the being field, this pun alluding to a relation to land set out by the Georgic, being guaranteed by turning land to profit. Though he says, I was much slower and more intimate with my beans than usual. Here is the responsible non-dreamer working only for tropes and commentary in the only open and cultivated field. As I have little experience with this sort of work, there is not yet any commentary. Thank you.
Lucy's run out of copies of her book. Her book is called Open Door. You can find it at readings and you can find it on the Curated website. So yeah, look for it if you enjoyed that. So the next poet we have for you tonight is Tim Evans. I see Tim performing on the grassroots poetry scene in Melbourne quite a bit. and he's unique. He's incredibly amusing in a kind of dark sort of way, quite different from the poet you just heard. And I'm going to read the bio he sent me, which reads as follows. Tim is recovering from being English and enjoys staring down the overwhelming angst of human existence than laughing in its face. Due to a bewildering series of clerical errors, he has been allowed to speak words at people in Melbourne, New York and London, received an honourable mention at the Melbourne Spoken Word Prize and competed at the National Poetry Slam in Chicago with Team Slammer. He's been published in the Victorian Writer, Australian Poetry Journal and Solid Air. Tim is a Masters of Research candidate at RMIT University, focusing on performance poetry. And several people have said nice things about him, about his work, but have refused to go on record. And he likes using self-deprecation, but he isn't very good at it. Please welcome Tim.
Hello, sorry, that could be confusing. I mean, hello the audience, not hello the building. Hello camera 1, camera 2, 3, 4. Are we ready to edit? I'll say it once more. Hello camera 1, camera 2, 3, 4. If you've never seen me before, we're just about to do the self-deprecating bit. Although, as Amanda says, I'm not very good at it. Is this freestyle or is it pre-writ? Pre-written. Shit. Look for me during the interval where I have no books to sell. I'm more of a wandering fool or minstrel. But if you have coin, I have stories to tell. This set's nice, like I'm still in my lounge room. Don't feel so much like this is all too soon. So let's wrestle the elephant on the Zoom. Let's wrestle the elephant in the room. Because I used to do this quite regularly, and a friend of mine, he said to me, I thought you had anxiety, but I've seen you read your poetry. You couldn't do that if you paid me. I said, well, that paid bit happens quite rarely. Though it does make my tax return easy. Total taxable income, 90. But anyway, what did you say? You kind of implied that performing takes bravery. Well, sometimes it does and I'm shaky. But actually, the fact is, more commonly, it's the only thing that comes to me naturally. The truth is I have much more difficulty just going to the shops for my groceries. I hope the staff don't take it personally when a panic attack gets the best of me. I'm just scared of people, more generally. He said, you know all of this is rhyming. I said, yes, I wrote all this yesterday. It's all part of my brand new strategy. I thought maybe I'd be less panicky if I interact only in poetry. He said, is that why you brought your own microphone? I said, oh, an internal rhyme, own microphone. You see, it's so easy. Yeah, I brought a mic and a PA on a trolley. He said, isn't this all just hugely impractical? I said, no, my dear friend, on the contrary. I've been acting much more confidently. I've got bars for every eventuality. I use haiku to order my coffee. Just a flat white, please. Strong and skinny. How are you? Have you been busy? That does work at 17. He said, but how can you possibly predict everything I might say? I said, well, you're not an actual person, really. But an amalgam of things friends have said to me. And you stand in for them metaphorically or allegorically. I'm not sure what you called it technically, but you're a character I've created semi-fictionally. With that, my friend simply faded away. In fact, the whole scene became wavy. As the fourth wall falls, so go the other three. And I was home, alone, writing this poetry. In some time after the before time, when the timeline is all ill-defined, Post-Tiger King, pre-home baking. Post-lockdown stress, during the next. And I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm just cruising through this. Got my isolation locked down. And I'm explaining how for a virtual crowd. Never really went to bed, so I'm up early. Kick away my ennui with a strong hot coffee. Stick to the bitter taste of regular anxiety. Take my body out my house, but my mind comes with me. Mask up for a wander around the cemetery. Wind through the plots and ponder on mortality. It's all about finding your new routines. Just push down those difficult feelings. Time for morning nap with some troubling dreams. Exacerbate fragile states with these scrolling screens. Keeping busy, chip away at my self-esteem. I'm doing just great, not coming loose at the seams. Always make sure you're eating properly. Having coffee and smokes, but nothing solid. Does downing beer at lunch make me alcoholic? I'm just drowning the fear, not getting catatonic. Watching the matching emptiness in my wallet. Funding is withdrawn, so I'll never get to college. You must remain productive. Just ignore these iniquities in our structures. The fact they've redacted the Department for Culture, thinking on that now is just not productive. Let's get back to the normal formally constructed. While the paradigm has been briefly interrupted, we will shortly return to the programmed injustice. But who am I anyway to talk on this stuff? I'm okay at home with two people I love, my favourite human being on the other made of fluff. Mustn't grumble, look on the bright side. Summer's coming soon and we'll all be outside. So we'll make tea and cake and we can bake it outside. But we're still inside, watching shit. And I've had more episodes than Netflix. But I've got no chill, because somewhere I got stuck in the wrong movie. I guess I expected a light romantic comedy, but this thing is rated M for melancholy, prescription drug use and sustained full frontal anxiety. This must be some kind of art house thing, because the main guy is kind of just crying and drinking. I mean, I guess he's the main guy. It's hard to tell. He's selling that tortured soul thing quite well, but this characterization is all a bit two-dimensional. And this guy, he looks to look like me, minus hope and desire and energy. If I'd lost direction and about 10 kg, and my acting range ran from sad to panicky. A lot of the plot is all in flashback, but I don't see how that has any impact, how it affects his life or what might happen later. I'm starting to suspect an unreliable narrator. There are parts where I think there's meant to be dialogue, but it's all drowned out by internal monologue. I kind of want to root for the underdog, but to be blunt, this dude is kind of a slog. It's sort of suggested there's more underneath. He writes in a notepad that no one else sees. And in those scenes, his frown briefly recedes, and his face displays something more than fatigue. I can't say I enjoyed it, but I did come out changed, maybe ready to act myself again. I wouldn't rewatch it, but all else being equal, somehow I find I'm excited for the sequel. During this communal isolation, I've been rebranding my depression as more rugged individualism. Better suited to late-stage capitalism. No longer do I ever say I simply just can't stand, but I do refuse to get out of bed for a penny less than 10 grand. The outcome is the same, but it's important how you frame it. Then Rocky comes to tell me that he's finished second nap. He needs his second breakfast and he's done a massive crap. I probably should have said before that Rocky is a cat. So now I'm in the kitchen. Everything's a mission. Rocky is in overdrive, my feet are getting bitten. I'm scooping up a cat shit which is bigger than the kitten. All the time he's shouting, please, I haven't eaten in minutes. My partner is online at 9, so I make us both a coffee. No instant fixes in this house, I like to do things properly. An AeroPress, because I'm that wanker. But I can't afford a gadget. The kettle gently purring as I open up a tin, while Rocky's clawing up my leg, insisting, come on, feed me, bitch. So I slowly pop a hit to give the beast a better grip. He's ruined my pyjamas, but my skin remains unripped. I feel his bowl quite freely, and still he loudly meows. He's somehow clinging to my back and can't find his way down. I slowly lower both of us into an awkward crouch. Rocky leaps onto the floor, the food leaps into his mouth. I press the airtight plunger and maintain the proper pressure. 2 minutes to her meeting, so we won't drink these together. The milk is frothing slowly and approaching the right texture. I tap the jug quite sharply to pop the bubble excess. I've learnt a bit of latte art, so I fashion a majestic swan. Or, what's that, a heart? A giraffe? A perfectly round cloud. Staying out of webcam frame, wary of the microphone range, I clumsy plunk her coffee onto the open notebook page, just in time to see her stunning smile before work begins again. Rocky, briefly sated, finds the sofa, curls back up. I wipe down the counters and do some clearing up. Check the fridge and pantry for what we've got for lunch. I realise that I'm out of bed and haven't earned a buck. On every messy day like this, I drag myself up for love. So La Mama Poetica, 22nd of March 2022. This is for you. We end where we began, across spans difficult to imagine. This began when something deep inside cried for more than fire. Some part of head or heart or nameless ungraspable space yearned to be warmed by your story. Every trusty familiar tale repeated again, and always for the first time ever, right now, this second, gathering for alchemy, converting survival to company. We started before we knew who we were. But right now will never come again. Like, this is now, and there it went. So turn to them again, because then again, the time is always now, my friends. We few, we happy few, we band at La Mama. We will relight the candle for poets past the old torch still as fresh as the spark that will light 2 fusees for newbies in the dark of the laneway from glowing ember of rollers. We will build our town square on moving air. I don't need to tell you all. 2 years is too long a dramatic. Pause. When fear flops in the air yet like toxic droplets, we will pour ourselves forth in the liminal space between tap and pint glass. Stretch worthy, tired limbs in reverent weight, allowing the necessary settling grace, being the very weight and size and shape of silence, before filling up, appreciating the impossible thickness of liquid. This elixir, always in flux, this too has always existed. The nebulous is nucleus to why we choose to do this, art crafted when we mastered minor airwave variations, when they make the right vibrations the room shakes to its foundations. And sometimes, a line twists its way inside your mind and sits in deeper, undefined, running up and down your spine. And you carry it with you as it carries you through, revisits you. At another time and place in time and space, I hear you, poets of Melbourne. I hear you saying, I don't need you to be good. Go on, call yourself a poet. Poet, you are both anthropologist and historian. Grow a pair of lungs. Bite down on your microphones. Each small moment is a victory. Even then, only for a moment. I was there. But a moment is enough. We are here. We will hear you.
I think amusing in a dark way was pretty accurate, maybe. We're going to have a 20-minute break now. There are books outside. Actually, the books that are on sale outside are for the poets that haven't read yet. But have a look. It's a good chance to buy some. After the break, in about, no more than 20 minutes, we will have Paul Mitchell and Jennifer Harrison. So, I'll see you in 20
whether they partnership to the really what difference in your life, isn't it? Oh, yeah. You get on with her, don't you? What's that? You get on with her? Oh, yes, 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 lovely. Oh, that's lovely. Both lovely, both lovely people. I have done it. Yeah. I do that quite a lot. Let's skip over there. Did I put that over? No, that was someone else the other day. I think. Now this is, I said, you guys just remember, this happens, it's worthwhile done.
Green B73.
Oh, Steve, you must have known.
Well,
She
maybe
say she had a premonition because she was about to go. I think I'm going to stay for the rest of it.
Can I just quickly add something?
Yes.
My ticket is actually B88. My friend Rhonda also had to leave and gave me her ticket,
So you're
and
passed on.
that was her ticket.
There you go. Meant to happen.
Somehow.
All right. Okay, so our next poet this evening is Paul Mitchell. I've always thoroughly enjoyed Paul's poetry, and I had heard that he was working on some new poems. And we recently, Anthony and I recently had Paul feature at Keyword Sessions, and I think just before COVID hit. And he was brilliant, and I thought we need to have him at La Mama. And so here he is, but first let me tell you a little about Paul if you're not familiar with him. Paul is the author of 6 books, including last year's essay collection, Matters of Life and Faith, a novel called We Are Family, which is for sale outside, and 3 poetry collections, Minor Physics, Awake Despite the Hour, and Standard Variation. Minor Physics won a national award for an unpublished Australian manuscript, and Standard Variation was shortlisted for the Adelaide Writers' Week Poetry Prize. And Paul has a PhD in creative writing and teaches writing at Whiteley College. He's judged the Victorian Premier's Literary Award. His poems, essays and stories have appeared in numerous magazines and journals, most recently The Guardian, Westerly, Antipodes and Eureka Street. And Paul will be reading new poems from his tentatively titled new poetry manuscript, Skills for Living. Please welcome Paul Mitchell.
Thanks, Amanda, and thanks for the chance to read. Thank you to everyone for being here to hear us all. It's always an honour to be able to read your poems. I'll never forget that. The poetry collection might be called My Coffin Lid, My Shield. I think it's a bit more interesting than Skills for Living, but we'll see how we go. So these poems are all from that collection in progress, and most of them have turned up in literary journals somewhere or other. This is called Psalm 19b. Let me stand at a door that opens to ocean, ride on an orca underwater, then up and out of it, leaping. Let me call to forests a name they've forgotten, their leaves breathe a breath from the mouths of all children. Let me dive from a mountain, despite fear of falling. Let the snow that I fly through be skin that I land in. Let me river the windows on skyscraping offices while clouds get in shape for a priceless economy. Headlights in traffic are eyes full of wisdom. Let me get out of my car and walk with the billions in a line that leads to a cliff-top cottage. It fits all of us, easy. We listen to the story of living, words like an ocean stood up in and opened. On a bit of a nautical theme, this is called whaling. All that whale watching, cold hands gripping colder rails. Where are the whales now? After swallowing so many Jonahs, are they still hungry? Did they escape a team of Ahabs? Are they inspired by their triumph? Where are the whales now? And why won't they breach for us? A blue whale skeleton glued together, bone by bone, hollow-eyed, in the museum foyer shows how long they've been on the planet. Our cold hands on the rails there and at the beach getting colder. Whales on television toss themselves, only advertisements pause their play. We put gloves on our cold hands, stare at the black screen, the empty grey sea. Where are the whales now and what are they doing? A dictionary definition, adjective, colloquial, extreme. That's the title. First, cheap car rides around your city. Press a button and I'll be there. You'll know what I cost, and free mints and water later, you'll be where you want to be. 5 stars. Others will join me, but don't worry when the roads get busy. I'm making a button to push to right above them. Forget the stars, we'll fly to them. Someone else did to hotels what I did to taxis, but that's okay. It's pivoting your mindset that all adds up to another press of a button. You want your dinner? Press now and watch me pedaling hard for you. A restaurant in my pocket. And if enough of you don't press, remember those 5 stars. Ando, Farnsey, Barnsey, Hamish and Andy. You want more? Magda, Ray, Lee Chin, Rebel, all the stars. They rate us, shining like the sharp ends of my incisors. Because tonight, I'll be eating your culture. Don't imagine we'll have many Van Morrison songs in the house, but sounds, fans. That's what I meant. Won't have many Van Morrison fans in the house. No, not at all. So this poem is called Enlightenment, and it's after a Van Morrison song which is called Enlightenment. Enlightenment says the world's an illusion, but I wonder about Enlightenment's experience of war, attrition and psychic pain, whether Enlightenment's getting a little ethereal about earthly existence. The last time I felt oneness with the universe, I was contemplating a tree for 20 minutes and felt myself become the bright green leaves and those leaves me. But Enlightenment says that was no less an illusion than the stabbing pain in my back as my life force was siphoned into a full-time job. Enlightenment says both the job and my life force and even the stabbing pain are illusions. But I think enlightenment is the illusion while everything else exists to prove it doesn't. Still, who am I to question enlightenment when just now my train passes a giant black and white image of a Hindu goddess spray-canned on the rail bridge brickwork? I am, according to enlightenment, thankfully, no one. This is kind of on a theme, I think. The title is Weekend Warriors of the Apocalypse. So, what have you been up to? Oh, not much. Cruising around, getting stuff done, waiting for the great unveiling of the saints at the end of time, that kind of thing? Yeah, sounds good. I've been down at Bunnings. Snagged or burnt, but I don't mind. Yep, been there, got snagged, looking for wood to build a bobsled billy cart to hoon the dunes when the great sands come sweeping through the city. Ah yeah, give me the apocalypse before Harvey Norman. Nah, go get it while it's hot. Go! Get the lawns done? Yeah, I got them done. Mowed the bollards down and the tombstones too. Won't be needing them for bodily resurrection and that. What about the barbecue? Cleaned it? Ashes? Cremations? They're a bit harder, yeah. Might need a licensed contractor, fair bit of repair the cells and stitch up the DNA on those ones. Anyway, I'll see you down the corner hotel or the Book of Revelation station. Yeah, mate. Got a pot of gold, a golden ticket, and a trailer load of leather-bound Bibles to give you. Slap them round like a new idea, like a Who the Flamin' Hell's in Hell This Week weekly. I think it's going to say, all day, Saturday, and on till Christmas. Jesus, the decorations in the shops already? And the winter's turned to something or other. I can't get my tomatoes to grow, and the moon's turned blood red, and I can't get those scales from the dead fish out of me eyes. Yeah, I hear you. My body's a Jerusalem of injuries. Wife been good? She's well, not ordained, but organised. Yeah, gotcha, mine's the same. Loves a good Garden of Eden at the drop of a fig leaf. Can't argue with that. No, you can't. Well, you could. It'll do you no good. Right you are in a bucket of worms for your turn to plant the seed of the gospel. Going to do a working bee? Yeah, wouldn't miss it for all the honey and locusts in your stink bomb beer, Johnny. On you. Yeah, on you too, Pete. Nah, look, it's been good to preach your pants off and sweet to see you still got a head on your shoulders, old fella. Catch you by the river with the fishermen, yeah? Be a Christ load of us there, mate. We've been catching them all night and no sign of it ending anytime soon. Koans for the young. Of course, that's all of us. Just because ghosts don't exist doesn't mean they can't haunt you. When you're old, remind the younger you that you don't like what old people say. Once you realise you don't know anything, you'll know you're no longer young. Imagine you're talking to your younger self. Now imagine that's me. Luckily, I've got nothing to say. Not to you, anyway. As you know, time is only the same for us because we're on this planet. But where are you reading this? A theory destroyed is an angel shooting a pop gun at a circus line projected on a clown's behind. God knows everything, except how to be an atheist. That dream you keep having where you miss your exam hasn't happened yet. If it has, remember, the answers are in koans I've yet to write. I had a final koan in mind about the wind, but it was gone before I had time to wonder where it came from. This one's kind of dark. It's about as dark as I get. Although I have got dark before. I don't know what I'm talking about. Going back through my own past in a weird moment. I'll stop that. This is called Funereal. In a room where my grandmother sits knitting, there's a dark clock. I cannot say it's a grandfather, but I might say it's tall, hunched over a newspaper, headlines always summarising 1943. In this sitting room, my grandmother stands, lays her wool and needles down on a cushion for which she's knitting yet another cover. Who wore them out? Only the dark clock can tell, as time and again my grandmother pulls away from its arms. It's time, I say from the corner of the room, opening blinds so we can see outside. A black car, headlamps blinking on, off and on. My grandmother nods and leaves the room, and we would both like to say the dark clock stopped, but nothing could be further from that room. It's called Morning on the Road. Now I'm awake, I'm walking the road to Emmaus, talking with you about who you are and who I'm not and who I'm supposed to be. I can smell a barbecue and I wouldn't mind a beer. But you say, I can't just pull them out of the air. Miracles have a whole new meaning for me now. They haven't much meaning for me, I say, except for waking up, enough to eat, and someone to smile at. That's a lot, you say. And I can't disagree. And I admit it's a little miracle, you and me walking the road to Emmaus, and I've never been near it, and I haven't managed to put my dressing gown on yet. I'd say what you said to say goodbye, but you were gone on the road to someone else's prayer. Well, I've written a letter to Franz Kafka, and I feel like I should read it. Sorry, that's just going to have to be done. Letter to Franz Kafka. Given your output, I'm sorry to write on your letter, but I have these annual reports to type, so time's an insect, attention spans and shelf time shorter, and the digital age makes burning manuscripts impossible. What would you say to Brod now? Dismantle my hard drive? No, you'd have lived. Medical science, etc. I made a career decision, No interviews, no writers' festivals, just the dip and scrape of fountain pen in place of celebrity soundbites. But we can't work on annual reports every year of our lives. Brod would have drafted you a grant application. Yet I'd love to read your annual reports for what they wouldn't have said so clearly. Anyway, a letter. So some news. We fade, hair and pixels from photographs of photographs held in trembling hands by a kindly old man whose fingertips yellowing. But this is not news for you. And what of the yellowing? All fingertips are dark, and so, according to what the light from every open doorway told you, is the future. Did Diamant read your Yiddish version of the man whose barn and soul burnt the night he praised himself for his fortune? Sent to hell, that man asked for a drink of water from a saint. I'm sure you'd have told him, that gate, my friend, was open, but I'm now about to close it. Like that man, after I read the trial, I thought I knew everything. But I couldn't explain it to anyone. The trial or everything. So I write and write, dismantling myself, the other, significance and sense. Am I an insect or just a person of no consequence? Continual questioning makes me think I have consequence, but the consequence of that, you might have said, is this. Who are you to say what I might have said? But while I'm questioning, here's another. Did you imagine a life without living? We sweat, we die, we make ourselves eat our meals, we work, we die, we write and die and cough and forget our manuscripts. Seagulls bay for blood, insects smile in beds, and both dream of albatrosses carrying stones to lands where no one writes annual reports, chips are spat on, and children munch bugs for fun and don't exist, where even existence does not exist. And I, the eye that you left me with, take strange comfort in the blank eyes of servants and maids in gold-plated suits and ties, assured against future losses, stock market crash test dummies. They're safe in the idea they're here, not in the other world that both refuses them and to be. Here, where money buys them, they scrap their souls, secure in the knowledge bargain bins are taken to the curb, but rubbish trucks won't arrive. They're driven by ghosts of ghosts who give each other respectful nods, who read and write burning manuscripts while the idea of heaven persists, which must surely be helpful. Look, it's been a longer letter than I expected. I thought I'd stand a moment at your gate, ajar as always, light creeping through, as only light can, your voice tunnelling from the past. It's cold. I'll close the gate. But you're telling lies. I'm going in. But now my finger's stuck. You'll have to tear it off to shut me out. Go on, do it. I know it's better to go through life without a finger than for my tongue to go up in flames. Thank you for having me along. This one is my last one. It's called Death of a Sparrow. It's after the A.D. Hope poem, Death of a Bird. Oh, silence! Do you remember that sparrow falling into my neighbour's front yard dead at dusk? I passed as it made landfall, its lifelessness speaking of life, numbering of feathers and hair on heads, a father's care. But the sparrow still lay without its life, and I walked away with a photo I didn't take. Sepia puffed up breast of air taken in and never let out. On soft leaf buffalo grass alone, I left it, whispering proverbs and parables until they fell in fertile soil that's kept a sparrow's death alive these years. Oh, silence! How many times I've longed to sit on a nature strip and shout of this burden. But day after day, I fold my wings and take to imagined skies. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Jennifer Harrison. And frankly, I really don't need to say any more than that, but I will. I'll just say I'm really looking forward to your next collection coming out soon with Black Pepper, which I believe is called Sideshow History. Yeah. In a matter of weeks, I believe. Months? No. Yeah. There is a new collection.
They're waiting on me.
Oh, okay. But it's coming.
It won't be long. It'll be before the middle of the week.
Right, okay, that's good to know. Now, Jennifer has published 8 poetry collections. Most recently, Air Variations, University of Canberra in 2017, and NEY, Black Pepper 2018, which is for sale outside. She has received many prizes for her poems, including the Christopher Brennan Award for Sustained Contribution to Australian Poetry. And she founded and manages the Dax Poetry Collection at the Dax Centre at the University of Melbourne, and is currently chair of the World Psychiatry Association's section for art and psychiatry. And she's a beautiful person as well. And please welcome Jennifer Harrison.
Thanks to Amanda for inviting me to read tonight, and I want to mention her wonderful book, The Inheritors, which is just been published. And I just want to do a shout out to those who are watching from afar online, including my husband Bruce. Hello. And I'm so pleased tonight to be at the inaugural La Mama, where we have Auslan interpretation, and I really want to welcome Mark and the wonderful gestural language of Auslan that he's sharing with us tonight. And so I thought the first poem I would read is a poem about Auslan, me learning Auslan, which I wrote in 1994. I have childhood friends who are profoundly deaf, and the Auslan language is very important. And I realised that something newly about the culture of deaf people, which was very precious to me. So here we go, Auslan. My deaf friend said to me, "Our conversation's overheard everywhere we speak." He teaches me the sign for Sydney, the shape of a harbour bridge, skin, webbing, blue water. I hear a quiet voice in my hands in the silence when I am speaking, and foam, rubber, snow and glycerin seem softer in the fingering span than spoken words, falling short of what they name. I once saw a baby catching sunlight in his hands. Everywhere he touched, he laughed at what he could not hold, until language wheeled his pram away and he learned that silhouettes and sun were called chair and where. Precisely in mother tongue, we categorise the conch shells, sea hollows, the safety pins and taboos. My friend said, "I will teach you what you need to know, but other signs belong only to the deaf." He teaches me the sign for get. It is a fist placed against the right temple, the hand opening, flicking sun away from the hip. And this is a new long poem which is currently shortlisted for the Blake Prize, which I think is announced on Saturday. But, you know, I said, "Oh, I can't make it." And they didn't say, "Oh, that's a shame," so I don't think I will. Nevertheless, here it is. I will never, after Evan Boland's Yeats in Civil War. I will never, once in a lifetime, I never expected this, says my mother of her 91 years, as she accepts the pandemic's loneliness, fewer visitors, glum global news, failing vision, long days spent inside a small flat annexed to a nursing home. I wonder what it might be like to be her age and think about a world she will soon enough be leaving, though we never mention this on the phone. I think of honey combed from the sun by eucalypts, tough leatherwoods, clovers, manuka, tea tree, wildflower, acacia, all the seasonal weathers coaxing powder pollen into clouds of dark bees swarming. And I recall the monster hive that appeared one summer in the great gum's blossom outside our window, a tree so big it was featured in all the local council maps, a significant tree that I imagined was visible from outer space's satellite pictogram of Earth, like the Great Wall of China or the white handkerchiefs pinned to North and South poles. The hive was as big as a basketball and hummed with sonic fever, a river endlessly churning. If something is missing now, I still want that sweetness inside all the hive's combs, though hidden it can be imagined. The tree obeyed each season's cyclical codes, the shedding of dry leaves, brittle twigs, yellow fluff flowers, gum nuts, each shower falling in crescendo, successively ebbing, our courtyard always a carpet of littered mess. Whatever is missing now can't be found in the new moon shadowing the empty, sparse, white-branched canopy, the heavy trunk smooth as a ghost, a spiritual tableau. Even the possums were spooked by the cacophony of bees. I can't remember now if the bees slept. I think not. The tree has since been chopped down, neighbours weeping to see it go, though dangerously unsafe, too large, too wanton, too free. I imagine honey as the earth's mind tasting sweetness, soporific, lofty, the tree's moods probing air's essence. Today I sit in a room watching my young cousin's virtual funeral. The eulogies static and inaudible, the faces of my family somehow enlarged by grief, lonely, voyeuristic, a statue the way I sit here, parted from death, adrift. This morning, no bees, but I hear their elastic song reaching towards a clearing, maybe a rosebush, a wattle, wild lavender, brown boronia, or dandelions puff nodding in someone's suburban lawn. Nothing in the world's floral metre is as remote or as patterned as the rituals of grieving. Yeats said, "A pity beyond telling is hid in the heart of love." Raindrift, honey law, neologisms tying up threads. He's not in the world anymore, I think, watching figures in mauve and black pile out of the church, mimed hymns lingering. How should a panegyric end tree? Brambles, shrubs dying off, somehow flourishing into new green hubs. The hive, now a shield fashioned from bronze, a memory holding life within, the earth's protection in its wake. I'd like to read All Is True, a Movie, which is another of the tributes to Evan Boland. She's a fabulous Irish poet who died in 2020, and I was so moved by her poetry. I've been writing poems in response to hers, which I call afters. I remember talking with Kevin Pearson about how impossible it is to write a poem about Shakespeare that's any good. So, All Is True, a Movie is a film by Kenneth Branagh about Shakespeare, and so I've decided on an ekphrastic approach. So I'll see what Kevin thinks of this. I also want to dedicate this poem to a good friend who died on the 1st of this month, Geordie Albiston. And I want to dedicate this poem reading to her because of the last line in the poem. And I think you'll know what I mean when I get to the last line. And I'm very pleased that Kevin's here tonight because he published Geordie's early books, Botany Bay Document and The Hanging of Jean Lee. So there's a lot here tonight for me. All is True, a movie. At the end of his life, Shakespeare returned to his family and garden, as though expecting that everyone would welcome him after years of absence. An author like any other, summing up his life, his negligence, successes, friends, doubts, failures. Returning to an illiterate wife, did he expect to encounter such envy of words, or to find himself a little unlikable? His reputation as a genius unchallenged, unfragmented, a ringing bell. Who can truly say who wrote all of what poem or tragedy, and where misguided affections ought to lie? Relevance sometimes seems bullying. To choose words isn't hard. The last lines of his plays reference pipers weeping, a curtsy, the word clap, diseases, bloody hands, glories, go bid the soldiers shoot, Larissa's ring, freedom, happiness, amends, she will be tamed so. In short, the dead are the last to know what happened. Hamlet, his son, suicided, we are told, his poem's a forgery. It was Shakespeare's daughter who was bold. I'm now going to read just a few from the new book, and I'll begin with Sharpshooter. So this is a book about sideshow history in Australia, and I spent many years taking photographs of Australian sideshow performers, and I think I'm getting it out of my system with this book. Some people will be glad to know, oh, she writes about circuses, that sort of thing. Anyway, this is called Sharpshooter, and it's one of my favourite poems in the book because I really like Little Edie, who you'll hear about. A man offers himself to a shooter, the apple on his head a fabled dare. But when she strode up, unfussed but swimming in her heavy greatcoat, deadly looking, a good shot, she aimed her considerable gun at him and clipped off the apple like a cook peeling it for a pie. Sometimes two men stood with an apple pressed between their foreheads, silhouetted against light like conjoined twins, the crowd pressing, willing an error. But Edie shot that apple out too and strode from the stage with tickety-taut steps. It was a green hug family affair, and the men were her brothers, so maybe she fired blanks. No record of fatalities. But I like to think of her as little sister, gumboots and rifle more than props. She might have only been shooting fruit, but she was murderous, not hurting anyone. And this is a poem for the cook who followed the sideshow trains around and did all the cooking for everyone. I put down my ladle and drift past the trestle tables, scattered with tin plates and bowls. I don't stop to wipe the grease or collect the spoons of the still hungry and never filled. I walk out into the darkness where bramble hives stir at the edge of lamplight and the slopes of ungrazed country float beyond ticker tape into unscripted harshness. Red plains of dust and whittled scrub, dry waterholes and river sand. I've come to know the hollow echo of ancient trees falling into rot and the curling storms a sky culls then finds again in famished clouds, enlarging into inky swathes that obscure the sun. Here in the littering riot of burrows, the rabbits run free, a dish of stew, no fur, just little bones, and the wind skirmishes in spinifex branches run dry by salinity. The night's black plate is scattered with shivering stars, each star cut by light enough to make a comet cry. In most circus photos, I'm in the middle row somewhere. Between Atherton and Mariba, my hands, though invisible, hold a stained tea towel painted with apples and carrots in gaudy jubilance, or a linen waratah botanically inaccurate. Everywhere women set up their pavilions of competitive baking and embroidery near the stock pens and riding rings, yards and chutes for the butt jumping, a taste of leather old and hard in the baked air. And after the night shows, folk drift in late to supper to read their own scattered tea leaves in an enamelled cup, the smell of cinnamon in an empty bowl. And I only want to read two more. I'm not sure how time's going. But this is a poem. I know in this book I really wanted to address stereotypes. Like the sideshow history performers have had to, in the past wrestle with that all their lives, and I really wanted to imagine what their lives might be like behind the masks. So this second last poem is called Elephant Man, and you might all know of him. It's after Joseph Carey Merrick, who lived from 1862 to 1890. Sometimes the sun is forthright, as though meant to blaze on deserts and asphalt streets, dry riverbeds and caked dirt. But sometimes warmth is shyer, less direct, as it sifts over green fields, seeking contours of a gentler earth, smoothing out knotted plains to find shelter in plumage of a different kind, the pause between looking and being looked upon. Sometimes nothing is illuminated by light, not the wish to live privately in a room devoid of glass. Curiosity, a solitary book, a quiet atonement with the dark. Nothing remains of maternal impression, the arcanum that I was shaped by my mother's fear, the delivery of an odd child, her fault alone. But no sudden looming elephant that frightened her during pregnancy was to blame. I was born this way, a chance mutation that nobody could have imagined. I inherited myself into disapproval's anatomy and could not climb back into that womb unseen. Sometimes another's eyes hold me, as though soul mirrors exist and cannot rust or be broken, but I rarely go outside. Too often, looking is tinged with pity, and shame is a useless chasm. Now no one is left to taunt me with "that's more than you have earned," words disfigured by utterance, because sometimes a photograph lies about its subject or speaks only descant half-truths. In sepia reproductions, I am abject, but this is not what happened. Later in life, a benefactor gifted me 2 basement rooms beside a small courtyard. Solace, haven enough, a place for eyes to shelter when a man is tired of willing the earth to be blind. And the last poem is called Hawaiian Spangle, which is about Hawaiian guitar performances that I've heard so many times at Port Fairy Folk Festival. The music she hears when the tents are quiet in the deep, supple, fingered night vaults of small animals rustling in the wonga wonga vines that edge the South Coast Caravan Park, which for 7 days a year becomes less desolate, taken over by a tent city. Music folk pitching their Kathmandu flexible pole pop-ups, more subtle canvas domes, synthetic trekking A-frames, side by side across the oval and past the netball grounds. The music she hears is Hawaiian Spangle, bottleneck or lap style, black with tar and death, steel slide 12-string tunes diddly bow blues mutually inflamed by suns lounging in the small shadows of fires as they hunch over their fathers' guitars, strumming molten, rough notes that slip like harsh silver through fabric, annex eaves, and shudder across the frost-prickled grass, coiling back to memory of cotton, memory of sun on cotton, slide hard against the wood's throat, glissando and deep vibrato, singing out from the southern sharecropping thickets, the music she hears when the tents are quiet, and the festival settles for the night across Port Fairy is Hawaiian spangled, black with tar and death, smoke and fire kites by the light of a thin moon glimpsed above marsh grass, old music, and in the deep, supple-fingered vaults of dreams, sons hear it too. Practice it when they sleep.
Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you for dedicating a poem to Geordie Albiston as well. Geordie Albiston is a beloved Melbourne poet who we unfortunately lost a couple of weeks ago. A great Australian poet, a teacher of poetry. I think the greatest tribute we can pay to her is to read her work. I've read a lot of her work, and we've had her at La Mama in the past. So thank you. And thank you all for coming out tonight and listening so well and being with us. Thank you to all who have joined us online. These poets, well, some of these poets have books for sale outside. We have a few books by Jennifer Harrison for sale. We have Paul Mitchell's books outside, so please, if you enjoyed the poets, support them, support their poetry, and how does that sound? Please just another round of applause for our Now the next La Mama Poetica is on June the 14th, and we'll be featuring Michael Farrell and ACT poet Jackie Mallins and Melinda Buffton and Palestinian writer Hasib Hourani. And tickets will be available for that very shortly, so keep an eye out for it. La Mama Poetica is now on Instagram, so follow us on Instagram. We have a Facebook group, so if you haven't joined yet, please join that. And good night. Thanks for being here.